Welcome back to Through Inquisitive Kids. We're going to kick off the new year with a new video on ratios and proportions in our AMC8 course. Let's dive right into the first problem. On Wednesday, 1/3 of the students in Mr. Short's homeroom had drama practice. 1/4 of his other homeroom students had band practice. If 6 students had band practice, how many students are in Mr. Short's homeroom? Here we're starting to work with some fractions. These two problems are pretty basic, they're pretty simple, and it's just going to get us into the groove of using fractions, ratios, proportions, and all that. So we know that 1/3 of his students had drama practice. So for drama practice, that was 1/3 of the students. Now for band practice, we know that there were 6 students, right? And we know that these 6 students take up what percentage or what fraction of the total amount. Well, we have to be careful when reading this problem. It says 1/4 of his other homeroom students. So 1/4 of the remaining students that have not already gone to drama practice. So we first have to subtract 1/3 from 1/2. So that's 2/3. And times 1/4 to that. And here I want to make a point of going back to that very basic idea when we first began working with ratios and proportions in our Math Olympiad course. That was the math competition for grades 4 through 6. And now we're going to move, this is the more middle school, obviously, math competitions. But back when we were doing Math Olympiad, remember we talked fractions as if there is already a whole. So if you don't know the whole number or the total number of objects, just first set it as 1, and then make everything else a relation to that. For example, we don't know the total number of students in his homeroom. But here, we are already assuming that he has a whole number of students in his homeroom, and this 1/3 does not represent 1/3 of a student, because first of all, that would be crazy. And second of all, that just doesn't make sense. Instead, with this fraction, what these fractions are representing is what fraction of the total amount of students it takes up. Now that we have already covered that up, let's figure out this expression. And this gives us 1/6. So we know that 6 students represent 1/6 of the entire homeroom. Now this is when ratios come in. So this is when we take this whole number, 6, and its corresponding fraction of the whole, and we divide that. This is always a good trick when you know one part of the whole and you know the fraction of that part. You take the whole number that you do know and its relation to the whole, divide that, and get 36. Remember, it's not the other way around. It's not 1/6 divided by 6. That would give us 1/36. This is not accurate. And you could tell because 1/36 is not a reasonable answer for this type of problem. So we know that there are 36 total students. That would help us answer this question. 36 students are in his homeroom overall. Now let's look at the second problem. The ratio of W to X is 4:3. The ratio of Y to Z is 3:2. The ratio of Z to X is 1:6. What is the ratio of W to Y? This may seem like a lot, but remember, this is nothing to be worrying about. So let's first write them all out. W to X to Y to Z. And below them, we're going to be writing out some equivalent ratios. So we know that Y to X is 4:3. And we don't know the values of these two other numbers just yet. We know that Y to Z is 3:2. And remember, these are not the same ratio. So, they are equivalent, but they're not the same units here. So we can't put them in the same row. We know the ratio of Z to X is 1:6. But here we have to write 6:1 because the order of these two variables are swapped. So we would write 6 where X is and align the 1 with where Z is. Again, we don't know the values of Y and W just yet. Now we start filling in all these extra gaps. Let's start with the last. I'm going to do this call this equivalent ratio number 1, equivalent ratio number 2, and equivalent ratio number 3. Let's start by comparing these two ratios, 2 and 3. We know that from 2 to 1 we had to divide 2. So we know we have to divide 2 to 3 to get 1.5. And we don't know this one just yet. But now let's compare the ratios 1 and 3. We know that from 3, where x is, we had to multiply 2 to get here. So using the same rule, we do 4 times 2, which is 8. And we divide 1.5 by 2 to go back to the first ratio, which gives us 0.75, and here we have 0.5. And now we already have two fully filled out ratios, so we can find the ratio of W to Y. We do 8 to 1.5, but I usually like both of my numbers in the ratio to be whole numbers that are easy to work with. So I would do 80 to 15 and then divide. So we get 16 to 3. So this is our final answer for both of these problems, and I'll see you in problem 2.